Good morning. Sign. Good to see you. Good to see you. Take care.
This morning, I come to the Creator and ask the Creator to be with us today. Ask for special blessing. Ask Him to help us. We don't need that. Special blessing. A special day when we come together like this. Because had a can cow to can't well good. I'll train you to change to tart. I'll train you to good in the start. I'll train you to change. I'll call again. Look, the words had a can cow how in the city. Or how you're doing. Or yet kiss the juice away you're down there. That's your way you can't well good you to tart had a can cow. Look, the words how in the city. How too unique is that? How either the shoe or how to get any understands. But our ego has a street and a sis, Jida understands our ego. How yet is doing in the street. Chankasani, Plahas, or Ishas, Tuskohas, how in the street that. Gunchishi Kusaka can't count, or Kaskati Akshi to tart. Gunchishi Kusaka can't cow, how in the street that. Gunchishi Kusaka Tuskohas, how eat the she to tart. How eat the she that. Gunchishi Kusaka to tart had a can't cow, so the Kaskati Aksh. Gunchishi Kusaka, Gunchishi Kusaka can't cow, Gunchish.
So I think we can go ahead and move forward on our agenda. And the next agenda item is the opening comments. And I guess we could go with the way of the sun. So Mark is first. Opening comments, if you have any.
I just want to say good morning, everybody, and it's wonderful to see everybody here and look forward to all the good stuff that's going to happen and the direction that's going to be provided. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Do you have any comments, Richard?
Yeah, I just want to say good morning, everyone. Good to be back at the table. Good to see everyone here this morning. Look forward to the discussion today. Look forward to receiving some direction.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. Good to sneak in a few hugs here where we could this morning with who we could, who wanted to live on the dangerous side. So it was good to come walking in and feel the karma that was here this morning. It was a great drive over, lots of birds flying around. The land is really coming about. And I think what a better time to hold a meeting like this than to springtime and let it spring forth on us. So God bless you all. Good to see you. Yes, and Dachloedi from Tasman.
Very happy and honored to be here. My name is Shaga Key. It means woman on the mountain watching down. The name was gifted to me by my late grandmother, Evelyn Jack. My English name is Chantal Schultz, and I'm the lead negotiator for Taka River Tlingit First Nation. Honored to be here.
Hi, my name is Louise Gordon and I'm from the Taka River Tlingit First Nation. It's good to be here. And coming over, I was thinking about a story about a new beginning that my Uncle Jackie told me about. He said when in the springtime, it's a good time to really have a good start. It's a new beginning. All the leaves are coming out, all the different animals are moving around, and it's a good time to have a good start. So I think having this meeting today, I'll be keeping that in mind. Ganachish. Oh, and I'm an advisory committee member.
Say good morning to everyone. It's like Chief to the Carcross Tigers for hosting this meeting. It's like it was mentioned, it's a beautiful time. People are starting to move around and just look forward to all the discussions that we're going to have today and the direction that we're going. I mean, it's a long drawn out process, but like I was told before, good things always take time. So Chief and good to be here.
Good morning once again. Linda Dixon, my Indian name is Skokoteen. I'm in the Ishkatong clan. My grandparents are Winnie and William Atlin. I'd just like to welcome everybody here to the meeting. Hopefully we can get a lot accomplished today. I think it's important for our people, the Dakha, as a Dakha nation, to try and work together and rebuild what we used to have. It just feels good that everybody's here. Ganesh Cheese.
Thank you, Chief Linda. Thank you, Carcross Tigers, for having myself and my delegation to be on your territory, to participate in this meeting. I look forward to supporting all the good work that our technical people are doing. Constitution.
Good morning. My name is Colleen Williams, and I'm from the Taku River Tlingit First Nation, and I'm a director, the Crow director, and my portfolio is capital and O&M. And my Tlingit name is, sorry if I say it wrong, Katua, which is supposed to be a feathered friend, which is the little chickadee, I believe. And thank you very much for inviting us to your territory.
I'm going to take up half a morning to say who I am. Kiduda, James Williams, Wolf Clan Director for Taku River Yanyadi. I'd like to say thank you to Carcross for inviting us back home. It's our home. And I think that's the way I feel. But thank you much, Ganesh Jish.
Charlie James, Dr. Whitty, leader, Carcross Tigers First Nation. Welcome everybody, and today I think we got lots to discuss, and I hope we've got a large agenda, and thank everybody for coming, and have a good day. Goodness cheese.
Morning, everyone. Patrick James, Tlingit Kenach, Kuchin Hatiwasap. My English name Patrick, and say good morning to everyone. And I hope you had a good travel here, and it's good to see each and every one of you once again. You know, Ganesh Shish.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Nitzat, 10th or 5th son of Antonia Jack, Cocaton House, Atlin. I'm here just to observe. I've been invited by my leaders to sit in. I'm honored. on it, and also by my Kokoton leader to sit in. So I'm honored to sit here and listen on it. I know I came home in 1994, but then ended up taking the government to court. So even though I've been home for 20 years, I have been observing what's been going on within our territory. But what I also been observing is that I had to look at myself and find out why I am the way I am after 10 years of residential school and what affects us today as we sit and operate on it. Eventually, I will come out with some sort of paper on what I've seen and what I've observed with us working with the governments and how sitting down with the government is actually two very different things. It depends on what you are there for. If you're there on behalf of First Nations, it's a total different strategy on it. So I'm honored to be back. Thank you. Gunishish. And I'll pass it on.
Morning, Rita Johns, Carcross Tage First Nation Advisory Committee member. Thank you to everybody that's here and everybody that's online. I look forward to a good and productive day. Thank you.
So Eric, we can start with you next. We're going around the room and now we're going to go with the people that are online.
Right, going with Chish. To everybody. Just wanted to give thanks to our brothers and sisters from Carcross Tagish for allowing us to be able to have this meeting on their lands this morning. Signal Chish to Chino for leading us in prayer. I wanted to just take this opportunity to say when I had signed on, I was really impressed with the introduction of the video with Kevin and Boyd Benjamin taking us through a tour of Carcross, and it was such I think really that really portrayed, I think, the direction that we really want to go, and just showcasing not only our culture, but our community living, and looking at how that relates to so many things that we're going to be talking about today. As previously mentioned, I think it's allows us to, this gathering allows us to be able just to do some self-reflection, looking at where we're at today and looking at where we've been in a sense, and where we are heading today in regards to our future. I think there's a lot of work has been done and looks to give us an opportunity to look at that. And I'm looking forward to our discussions today, and hope that we can come away with some positive results, and I look at forward to our, as mentioned, our spring is a time of renewal. Definitely are going to be set with challenges for sure, but outside of all of that has never been too much of an obstacle for us in the past. So looking forward to a positive day. Chish.
Christine? No, there's more. Are they on mute? She's muted. Christine is muted. Christine, you're muted. There we go.
Good morning, folks. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I'm here to support. So if I can do anything, if the Gunta team can do anything to make sure this is a great day going forward, just let us know. I'm here to support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Vincent?
Yes, good morning. Vincent Esquiro, Taku River Tlingit, part of the NAD clan, and I'm honored to be here and looking forward to today's meeting. Thank you very much.
Dwayne?
Masiiti achoni dakka Tlingit. Akle yake tsuyusatini Atlangun Chish Hat Yanadi. Yiguai Juan Achonian, Yiguai Juan Achanian. Atlangun Chish Algonquin Kwan. So I wanted to say good morning to everybody. So good to see all of you. Wanted to thank the Algonquin people. I'm a guest on their lands over here in the Ottawa Valley, the Tlingit Embassy here in Pembroke. Just wanted to say it's so good to see all my people up in the Yukon and to see everyone coming together and seeing that you're all safe. That down here we're in the middle of our third wave, but I just hold my hands up to my nation and my inland Tlingit people for all the support that you give all of us Tlingit who are down south, and that it really makes us feel good, and especially to be able to participate in an event like this today is that we feel we're still part of our people and able to contribute. So, Atlangun Chish.
I don't think there's anybody. Is there anybody else on there, Blair? I think that's, yep, yeah, he spoke. Stephanie,
Hi,
go
good
ahead.
morning. Thank you. Good morning. Shonsi Yasan. My name is Stephanie Pennickett, and I work with the Gunta business team, helping with the coordination, community engagement coordination for the Nation Rebuilding Project. Happy to be here.
Jesse, did you want to speak?
Hi, I'm in the back and I'm helping with all the tech stuff, but yeah, let me know if you guys need anything, and part of the Good to team and helping hold up community engagement for all three nations. Sanicho.
Thank you. So I think everybody is done introducing themselves. We can move on to the next agenda item. So, report from the coordinator. Thanks. I didn't have your name there, so I didn't call you by name.
My name is Lynn Gagnon, and I'm the coordinator for Nation Rebuilding Project, which was really initiated in May 2020, and I came on board in June. So since then, we've created a steering committee. There's the advisory committee composed of the three chief negotiators, which is Mark Wedge, Chantal Schultz, and Dave Keenan. And we have an advisory committee that is composed of representatives from each of the DOC First Nation. And Richard Sidney is here, and Rita Johns and George Esquiro are here that do sit on the committee, and oh, TJ, sorry. Yes, and the other members as well. So what we've done with the advisory committee is we've done a project terms of reference. We've created a project timeline. And since we last met on February 1st, when the leadership met and passed a resolution to develop a work plan on the 5 areas, to focus on these 5 areas, which was wildlife, boundaries, economic development, language and culture, and legislation. And Chantal will do a presentation on the work plan that we have developed. We also held a citizen engagement, a virtual citizen engagement in Teslin with the 3 DACA communities, and it was a great success. We had, in each community, there was a presence, so people could gather together, of course, following COVID guidelines. There was a great turnout. There was over 75 participants, and we got a lot of great ideas and input. And I think the storytelling gathering this afternoon is the result of the input from citizens, in fact. So my role is to try and keep things moving and help and support the steering committee and the advisory committee. So the next steps will be to continue the engagement, to continue keeping leadership informed. And there are a few things that we're looking at, which is being on the land. So having a bigger gathering where people can actually come and we can all be together. Hopefully we'll get summer soon and be able to do that. And behind the scenes, they've introduced themselves, but Gunta has an amazing team and makes this all possible and flow so smoothly. February 24th, when it was a citizen engagement, it was seamless, and without their help, this would not happen. And in this time of COVID, it's so important to be able to gather, and even if it is virtually, to be able to exchange and talk. And so this afternoon, again, we will see a beautiful gathering, I'm sure. So that's pretty much it, unless you have questions or comments. Okay. Thank you. Merci, Gunashish.
Thank you. We are just whipping through our agenda. Chantel, I think, is next.
I understand there's a PowerPoint presentation to share. There's a PowerPoint presentation that will be put up on screen. Thank you, it's Chantal here, and I'm very honored to be here. I also want to make a note about how exciting it was to wake up this morning and realize that I got to do this today. This is one of the strong points of the work that I do. And coincidentally, I was just doing an evaluation of my job performance and doing the self-evaluative portion and reflecting on the areas that are most interesting and most exciting and that give me the most motivation and inspiration. And certainly working with our communities in this way is a real privilege. And I'm really grateful to be able to learn from the experience of our ancestors and to bring that forward in the work that we're doing today. On the work plan that we have devised as the 3 inland Tlingit nations, a reminder that the work was based off of the work that had been done by our ancestors and our elders. So our elders started this work, and we've talked in the past at previous meetings about how in the 80s, all of this work that was done is being brought forward into today's work plan. And so the areas that we're focusing on now, the wildlife, boundaries, economic development, language and culture, and legislation, we have put into a work plan that really is dependent on the technical staff. Do you want me to give a moment? Yes, there won't be a minute. We'll just give a moment for them to get the PowerPoint set up so that I'm not talking without you having something to pin it to. I was just asked if I have any jokes. It's a joke that I'm the least funny person I know. I never have any jokes. I'm very serious all the time. All right. So thanks for your patience. This briefing note and work plan was created so that we could give a bit of a visual as well. There's been some feedback that we require more visual learning tools for our citizens, and that's well understood. The background of the work plan is the 3 executive councils have been working to formally bring all 3 First Nations together as one nation, one voice, to come together as one, the Dakha. The constitution of the Dakha Tlingit speaks to having a unified voice of Dakha Tlingit Nation. We are reminded of the mission statement of the Dakha Tlingit Nation is to reunite for all time. The Dakha is one self-reliant and self-governing nation based on healthy citizens who believe and practice a strong cultural identity. This will ensure protection and the wellness of our future generations, the land, the water, and our environment. So we use these principles to guide our work in developing any background, any documents, any work plans, and the events that you'll see that have happened in the past and that will continue going forward. This work plan came out of the February 1st, 2021 meeting where we met in Teslin to discuss the Nation Rebuilding Project. This leadership passed a resolution that directed the project steering committee to develop a work plan based on 5 focus areas: wildlife, boundaries, boundary lines, economic development, language and culture, and legislation. The steering committee is composed of the 3 chief negotiators of the 3 nations who you know, and this is the work plan that we're presenting on today. Next slide, thanks. So in the considerations, we're asking you to review the work plan as the leadership and provide comments and further direction if required on this first draft of the work plan. And to note that the success of this work plan really relies on the implementation and collaboration of our various departments. So the lands, heritage, any cultural departments that may be existing for our First Nations, and through the guidance of each First Nations technical teams. We recognize as a steering committee and lead negotiators that we're not able to conduct this work alone. We really do require the technical teams, all of the community engagement as well, our elders, our youth, to help guide us to complete this work. We're not able to do it alone. Next slide. The Nation Rebuilding Work Plan, this is the first topic, land and water and wildlife. So we know that wildlife was the first topic that was for us to address. And the action item here is implementation of a joint process to collaboratively manage and administer the lands and resources of our traditional territories. And of course, the goal is always approval of dispositions, licenses, and permits for access and use and development. And this is per the November 2019 proposal, which is related to the treaty tables for TTC and CTFN. And this is an area that we know all of our nations have a huge interest. We are interested in enforcement and compliance and monitoring. We're interested in having a say over any land dispositions or outside interests in our beautiful traditional territories. That's one of our overarching goals, is to have jurisdiction over our entire traditional territory. And so what we're talking about here is using the technical teams of our lands departments, our land guardian programs, our heritage departments, and our citizens to help us achieve those goals so that we can be governing over our entire traditional territories. Of course, noting that that would start small, and some of the tools we would use to get there would be potentially strategic decision-making agreements. We would be using our game monitors or game guardians, and that may include joint reporting forms. And as we've talked about land use compliance monitoring, that would be a focal area for our collaboration between the nations at the technical level. We would achieve that through having our lands working group. So TTC and CTFN formally have a lands side table, a lands working group through their treaty table TRT has always been invited to join that. We would be asking that our lands teams now collaborate more formally to help us achieve the outcomes that we need on this particular topic. Any comments or questions on the first topic so far? Next slide, thanks. So this one here is on boundaries. And we know that this is a sensitive topic for us. Our nations have artificially imposed boundary lines that are separating us and alienating our people and our citizens from each other. In defining a Dakhka administrative boundary through information sharing and collective and independent research, as per nation rebuilding, we would also need to work with the lands working group. And so what we would be asking for them is to gather, collect information based on some of the historical maps and some of the materials that are already available, and to help us identify areas of primary use. We've used this term before in the past. And so in defining a boundary line, because we want jurisdiction as the 3 inland Tlingit nations over our entire traditional territory, not just small pieces of it. The boundary line around our whole traditional territory may need to be adjusted and amended, and that would have to be done through a collaborative process. And areas of primary use would be those smaller areas where each of our nations live. So there's lots of ways for us to collaborate on making sure that we are getting those things right. And it would be also the community involved in that. It wouldn't just be this team or this project defining that for our communities. So we'll really be looking to our leadership to help guide us through that process as well. Ultimately, we hope that we would refile a statement of intent that captures where each of those areas of primary use are, and that our 3 inland Tlingit nations feel comfortable with the outcome of what that boundary line is around our entire traditional territory. Any comments or questions on this section?
I just have a comment in regards to, you talk about the historical maps that possibly can be made available, the historical use information that could be collected. But also I think one of the things that's significant about our history is the historical relationships that have always been there. I know that, just thinking about the mail runs that used to be done from Tasman to Atlan, and the trail that was used to have that happen, and all the people that used to go back and forth, and some would go there and stay for a while. I know my grandfather did. And so I think those are, that'll be a significant part of this information as well. So I just wanted to mention that.
I really appreciate you mentioning that. There is a lot of information that I don't have that we'll be looking to gather from the communities, from our lands and heritage departments, and from our actual citizens as well. And so that is the information we really need to be aware of and mindful of as we go into this process and help direct our teams at the technical level about how to assist us in achieving this outcome. Any other comments, questions? Next slide. This topic is economic development. And here the action is collaboration for the purposes of enhancing economic development opportunities and partnerships amongst the CTFN, Taku River Tlingit First Nation, and TTC to identify and implement joint development opportunities. We would be inviting the respective corporate entities to implement the resolution as supported by the Dakhka leadership. So here we acknowledge also that we don't have the authority to direct our corporate entities, and we're certainly not asking for that. We would like to just simply be informed of when they are meeting and what the economic interests are defined as, to ensure that there's alignment with the land use planning. So really, as our corporate entities move forward under direction of leadership, or however they are guided and directed, we would want to make sure that we're aligning our interests and that we are using the information gathered to deliver on the outcomes of this work plan as well, as also defined by our leadership. Any comments or questions on this section?
If I may, sorry, but I just wanted to
Please.
say that I think the introduction into when I had just logged on to the meeting and the tour that we're given through the film that was developed for Carcross, and the tour that was given by the makers of that particular piece. I know that it really, I think, showcases what CTFN has created in terms of creating economic development opportunities for their citizens and for their community. I think this really speaks a lot to us being able to look at how we can sit and share this type of information with each other so that we can gain some knowledge into the work that's being done. Not only that, but I think it helps really a lot too in terms of looking at some of the capacity challenges we have from time to time when it comes to areas such as economic development, and looking at how we can begin to learn from each other about how we've addressed those challenges and overcome them, and really have the success that CTFN has been able to achieve. And I think as part of that, I think this is definitely an area of focus for us, especially coming through these COVID times and looking at the opportunities that are going to be created in terms of economic recoveries for all of the regions that are across this country, and hopefully we can bank in on that and gain some good movement in the work that we're doing as DACA. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Chief Eric. Spokesperson Ward.
John?
Thank you, Madam Chair. TRT has a land use plan, and now we want to move forward on this concept of how do we use our land to support ourselves economically. So I just want to suggest that, some time spent as to how you want to use your land, and that fashion can strongly affect how your land use plan comes together, just to avoid any kind of conflicting things later on. Like we're finding, as you know, the power expansion is one example. Some people could be easily view that as conflicting with our G2G arrangement with the British Columbia government in the way it's worded in the various land use plans. So we're finding, well, how do we do this now? You can catch yourself in that pot, if so to speak. Kind of reminds me of when federal government tried to nail First Nations to pay tax, court cases and so on. I think that there was a kind of a boundary around reserves and stuff, but what had happened, CPR and CNR got caught in that trap too, because they were on federal lands and they had to pay tax as a result of all these decisions. So I see that kind of similar challenge, approaching us, and it's creating some difficult conversations in our own camp. So I just put that out there for thought, a strong economic strategy is very helpful. Not that it should guide your land use planning, but it certainly would prevent some problems in the future.
Colonel Chief, Spokesperson Ward, and Chief Morris. I know that CTFN is certainly a leader in the economic development arena, and our other nations, of course, look to you as leaders to help guide some of our long-term goals and short-term goals as well. There was a bit of an oversight. I've been provided a note that the work plan and briefing note was not printed. It's being printed right now for your review, so apologies for that. Next slide, please. Language and culture, Hakusti. So this is one of the most important ones because it is the item that we hear the most feedback on. Our communities and our leadership consistently bring forward the importance of culture and language and the focus of our nations on revitalizing those things that are so important to us. We have heard that it's important to have gatherings with elders and youth and language program students. And so those are items that are actually today, yay. One of the best parts of today is we get to do that. And we will continue with a focus on creating events that will bring forward our elders and our youth. And we will continue to capitalize on using language so that our people can hear that more and we can have that brought forward as part of what we do on a daily basis. Another action is the integration of language and culture throughout all of our programming. So note that this is draft. These are some ideas that we as the steering committee pulled together. We are asking for your input. If something doesn't look right, please feel free to be transparent with us and give us that feedback so we can incorporate it. What we thought of at the outset is in terms of integration of language and culture, place names. We know that's a really important piece. We are looking for recommendations to school language programs. We would like to support existing language programs that are already operating. We're looking for language legislation to be developed for continued genealogy research and a negotiation glossary, clinketized terms. So in agreements that we may be drafting or going forward with, it's really important to have our language reflected right in there. It brings a lot more strength to the agreements and a lot more inspiration to the people who are viewing those. It also tells the other outside governments and what is important to us. So we know that's something that we want to focus on and have easy to hand for the negotiating purposes as well. The other item that we heard from the last meeting that we had that was extended to all of our nations is to focus on healing strategies. So we know and we hear and are reminded continually of the state that some of our people are in, our most vulnerable citizens who are suffering from all kinds of things. And we hear from our elders, from our youth, and from all of our citizens that a focus on healing strategies is really important and that we can't move forward unless we pay attention to that. We thought that one of the action items there would be really helpful to incorporate our health and wellness departments, and we'd like to focus on information sharing. We have ideas of citizen demographics and baseline data. We'd like to revisit existing programs and what services they may offer. We're talking also about social assistance program alignment with employment transition and community beautification programs. So those terms actually came from some existing services and programs that are already occurring within other nations. We talked about CTFN specifically and some of the programming that is offered to try to provide jobs and to give jobs in a place where people were really trying to meet them where they're at, rather than forcing people to go through a process that may not be accessible or available to them, where they feel alienated from being able to get jobs that might be fitting their lifestyle or their skill set at the time. We would like to focus more on aligning with the programs that are available and perhaps just adopting some of those in other communities. So where something might be successful for one community, we see no reason not to use those same ideas and piggyback off of each other's strengths. So that's the idea with the collaboration of the health and social and wellness departments, is to share information so they can see what the strengths are, what programs are working really well, so that our citizens might be able to have some immediate and short-term benefit to the work we're doing. We want to be able to go forward to the community and say, yes, we're working on jurisdiction and legislation, but have no fear. We are also doing these really important things on health and social. So we're paying attention to the culture and to the overall wellness of our citizenship. We know that traditional knowledge and traditional medicine programming is available and has been done not just in this area, but all across the country. And we'd like to put more focus and attention on supporting how those programs can get off the ground and be more available if they're not already. Communications, relationships, lateral violence workshops have had a high success in other places. And we know that our communities are focusing in different areas on those things. But in talking to citizens, a lot of them describe many of the same issues. There's a lot of communications issues, how we talk to each other in our communities, in our homes, in our workplaces and with those that we are closest to. And that can be a focus for our health and social and wellness and culture, is how we can clinketize some of the programming that is already being offered, how we can focus on giving our people, our most vulnerable people, some of the tools, skills, and language to continue to develop in the healthiest way they can. And of course, land-based learning opportunities, that's highly critical. So we're also exploring other ways of having land-based events in between our nations, and we're looking forward to offering more of those over the summer and into the fall. Any questions or comments?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Dwayne.
We can hear you.
Okay, okay. No, it looks great. Just the one comment that in 2006 in regards to language and culture at the Dhaka Elders Gathering, that one of the things they talked about was the Hakusti celebration, bringing our three nations together to celebrate our inland Tlingit culture. Another thing they talked about was immersion camps for the whole inland Tlingit nation, following the seasons, like one per season, and rotating it between the three communities, and maybe even having one in Alaska. So it's just that coordination as well between language revitalization between our three nations, that we have so few fluent speakers, and we need to work together closely to preserve our language and pass it on to the next generations. When TTC was developing our language and culture implementation plan, we had such tremendous support from Carcross and Atlin and our brothers and sisters from the coast as well. It was just amazing, all of us coming together, even though it was a Teslan plan, it's all of our plan, that everyone came together to develop something that was just amazing. So I really look forward to that continuing, working together to save our Tlingit Yucatangika Hashagun.
Thank you very much. I appreciate those comments. One of the items on this topic is support for existing language programs. I know that Children of the Taku is a language revitalization program. They're a small grassroots society. They are actually presenting here today, this afternoon. And so it's a good opportunity for us to get to know them if we don't, and to talk to them about this important need. And immersion camps have been offered in the past, and is something that we will speak with them about, hopefully continuing and providing access to all of our communities, which it's currently open to. Any other comments here before spokesperson Ward?
Thank you. TRTFN is also recognizing the opportunity for the jurisdiction on children, family moving to the forefront. So that could really strongly impact or support, language, culture, and Hakustiya things, because it's all about the way we bring up, how we become families and bring our children up, and so on. So I'm just hoping that some attention be given to that, and monitor those developments and include them in future reports.
Thank you, spokesperson Ward. As TRT, John was commenting on the child welfare framework development table that TRT is going to be engaged in. And certainly we'll be looking to our neighboring inland Tlingit nations to help guide us in some of what they've learned and some of the successes that they have in their own development of such legislation and jurisdiction. Any further comments on this topic?
Just wanted to say I really am appreciative of the points that have been raised in regards to looking at both culture and language, as well as health. I think definitely more collaborative work will definitely begin to reap us some positive results, because I think it's always a challenge when sometimes when we look at the different things that we're doing in the area of healing in our community, or looking at health in our community. Sometimes we tend to look at the outside world and bring people in to help us to move things along. And But if we can begin to utilize more of our resources within DOCA, I think then it definitely will help us to really build a good, strong base for the work that we need to do. You know, and if I just have a suggestion in regards to looking at the integration of our language and culture, like, you know, I think like in the part where you mentioned develop a collaborative framework for a healing strategy for DOCA, I think being collaborative in our language and culture too is going to be really key, because I look at what's happening over with our brothers and sisters at CTFN in regards to their work with carving and all of that work that's related to that, and I look at what's happening over in TRT in regards to just working with the young people in regards to culture and language and art. And, you know, I just think that the collaboration that can happen and the result of that would be so awesome. Like I think about the immersion camps, if we can develop a program that's reflective of all our desires and really have them strategically throughout the year, you know, with that probably would coincide with our seasons. And I think that would be something that would be really positive. It'd be targeted not only just for younger people, but for our elders and our middle age as well. I think would be really a good focus. And I think this is just so good to hear today, you know, and I just can't help but feel positive about what's being presented to us. So Gumlachish.
Gumlachish, any other comments? Next slide. Sorry, I missed one.
Want to make a comment regarding the issue around language. Just based on what I've seen over the years and how it's deteriorated, we're now at a stage where I think it's really critical. The younger generation is having better access to the language than we had when we were growing up. It's amazing what they're learning online. We talk about immersion camps being one way, but it'll also allow us to look at the cultural component as well. The goal is to set up a rebuilding of the nation, and language is pivotal to identification around a nation. The really interesting when you look at from the government of Yukon perspective, you look at the Education Act they have in place. It's those people that actually will certify our language instructors. It's not our governments. Can't believe it. Can't believe we have a government who's foreign to us, actually telling us who our instructors should be and how they're certified. For me, it really is, you know, it's one of the most important areas that we have to fundamentally change. We now have a new Minister of Education in Yukon, minority government. I think the leadership should maybe consider developing a plan with respect to how you're going to approach the minister and have those changes made. Because the Education Act, the way it's described, will certify who our instructors are in our schools today. And we're subject to that law until we pass our own Education Act. That's what's really sad. Just regarding the issue around health and social, the importance of the nation, Just before we leave here, I want to share with you some of the discussion that we've been having, the Yan Yeti have been having. We're looking at setting up not so much a camp. We're looking at coming together with the Yan Yeti from Taka River Tlingit, and Yan Yeti from Natasahini, and the Yan Yeti from Tesla, coming together sometime this summer, probably around July, hopefully, where we can sit down and understand who we are as a clan, what the right protocols should be, and the whole issue around who we are as a clan. And it started with in Tesla where we were having this discussion, and it's amazing how it come together, because I was talking to James this morning and he's telling me that we should have this meeting. We should have this time together. That's exactly what we've been talking about. And for me, that's part of the nation. When we talked about the border issue, we didn't know any borders. We still don't recognize those borders. So I thought I'd just offer that up to leadership, that we will be beginning to work closer together, both at clan level and hopefully at the leadership level within Dakar, so we can actually move our agenda this time around. We're really at a critical stage in our evolution. It's good to see the direction that's been received so far. Some of the work that's following up on some of the direction that was received, and it's so positive. So those are the comments I want to make this morning about these really important issues. And for me, language is really important. I think just from my family alone in Tesla, there are probably maybe 7 or 8 fluent speakers. We lost a couple last summer. Huge loss. Huge loss. I was sharing with James this morning, if you don't mind, James, I'll talk about some of the direction I received in the past, or the importance of our heritage, what we should be embracing. We were negligent and we let slip. We shouldn't let that happen again. Some of the songs, some of the understandings around what's really important for us. You know, and for me, we now have an important opportunity before us to come together and embrace some of the areas that are common to us. So those are the comments I want to make this morning.
Mark, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I just was inspired by my brother Richard here. And so I want to just sort of speak, not necessarily as a steering committee member or negotiator or anything like that, but just as a Deshiton, right? And I looked to my brother Alex and whatnot, and I think what Richard touched on was a really important thing. One of the things that helped us with the Deshiton, you know, back when, you know, and we were struggling, because every clan, everyone will struggle at some time. And that's when that the teachings kick in to say, how do we support each other? How do we look after each other? And I remember Matthew Fred came up, because Matthew Fred was Kasha de Henry. He was the main spokesperson for all the Deshiton all up and down the coast and inland. And we really learned a lot from him, right? And it strengthened up those relations. And I know that, you know, especially with Tesla and with each of us as our communities, we need to have more of that clan interaction. Do you mean because it's the clans, you know, like in Yeti, the Deshitan, Daklewedi, those clans that it's not just the governments, the three governments that have to work together. It's those clans that have to rebuild that relationship. And it might make sense, you know, maybe the next time we start looking at how do we have joint clan meetings between all the nations. And maybe we could invite people like Garfield George. Garfield George right now is the spokesperson, Deshitan spokesperson that's in Angoon that speaks and invite him up, right? And I know there's other ones, other clans might want to consider that where we can invite, you know, some of them, you know, these people up and just have those discussions. I know that, remember Mom and Auntie Angela and them used to sit us down, in the clan saying, you guys got to know who you are. Right? And they would tell us the clan stories, right? This is a clan stories, here's the clan songs. And just to go back to what Richard's saying, language is more than just a program in school, right? It's about how we use it, what the songs are, how, you know, these types of things. So I'd make a suggestion that, you know, for consideration that we maybe look at, you know, another gathering similar to what we're having a storytelling here, is to invite so that we can have clan gatherings that, you know, hopefully we'll be past COVID then and we could, you know, have more clan gatherings between the communities and even, you know, between Angoon or on the coast, not Angoon, but the coast. Leads to the other thing, one of the suggestions, and I think it would be good to get some input from leadership. I mean, there was a suggestion, we have a relationship, you know, Dakar is inland, right? Those that came over, looked and came over the mountain. But we have that relationship with the coast. And I know over the years, we've worked with the Tlingit Haida and many of us are registered with the Tlingit Haida. And one of the thoughts that came up was for us to investigate, should we become a chapter? Is that something that Dakar should be looking at, right? To be a chapter of the Tlingit Haida sort of organization. I looked online and right now we're recognized, but we're not necessarily a chapter or a voting or a part of the governing body. And that should be given some consideration. Is that something that Dakar would also begin to look at, as well as with the language and that relationship? So relationships are really important. And how do we expand and develop those relationships? I think it's important. So I just want to say those two things. And I think I looked to Alex and I think we should talk about, maybe our clans should, you know, between the communities, just get together and have those discussions. Thank you.
I think that's a great idea also. Sir, are you done with your presentation or do you want to carry on? Are you done?
There's just one section left and it can be very brief.
Okay. Was there any other questions or comments in regards to that? No?
I just want to quickly say, I just, if I may, I just wanted to just kind of like add to some of the things that have been said. I think all of what has been talked about is a very, very positive in regards to some of the suggestions around having these clan gatherings amongst the clans within our communities. And I think that's really, really super positive, and it really goes back to the historical relationship that I spoke of earlier on in terms of our people traveling back and forth between our communities and looking at reestablishing those routes in a sense, in terms of looking at our ability to be able to gather as clans. I think because we definitely, we don't know everything about that we need to know about our, let's say, for example, my Daklewedi clan, like there's lots of things that we need to learn and come to understand some about our stories of our clan. I just wanted to share with you, we were over in, I think it was Haynes, and one of our members, our Daklewedi members, just a young person, we were getting ready to go on to dance, and an elder from one of the Alaskan communities saw this young person going by with a killer whale on the back of their blanket, and he said so he just kind of asked, he said, so you belong to the killer whale clan? And the young person said yes, and he said, well, where are you from? And he said, I come from person said, I come from Teslin, Yukon, that's in Canada. And he said, oh yeah. And the next question he had for that young person, he said, so you have killer whales there too? He said, and I found that interesting when I think about it now. And it's interesting that about the fact about where we live today, and we were able to carry that crest on our backs into the interior, and we still maintain that connection today. And I think that's something that's very significant about who we are, where we find ourselves today, and the honor and remembrance that we have about our ancestors. And I think that's something that's very important. And I just wanted to mention that. And I totally support the clans being able to get together, you know, and as mentioned. And I think that we're really offer up a lot of knowledge for us and really help us to grow and to really rekindle our relationships amongst ourselves. So Gumlachish for that.
Thank you, Chief Morris. Okay, or just John, did you have something to say?
No, I'm going to wait till
It's done. Okay.
completed.
Okay, Chantal.
Thank you. So the final section is on legislation. And that is simply for us to develop common legislation. There is an action item of preparing a concept paper or memo describing concurrent lawmaking authorities in BC, including recommended next steps. The concept paper should include implications of individual First Nations developing their own legislation on common legislation by DACA. So a wordy way of us saying that we need to explore the various elements involved in taking up our own jurisdiction, in developing joint legislation and what that means for each of us, as well as within the larger entity of DACA. This is a treaty legal working group item, and we have tasked them to develop the concept paper. We would certainly need to require the use of our legal teams. And there's lots of parallels between our treaty tables here. So this would be an item where we certainly collaborate and overlap with treaty. And that pulls it together for the work plan for now. Sheesh.
Okay, thank you. So the next agenda item is the rights letter from Stephen Phillips.
Chief Dixon, if I may.
Yep.
I just want to say in regards to the legislation, like I know that's an interesting area too of focus. I know that in Tasman here we have our administrative justice agreement with the government of Yukon, government of Canada. But I think when it comes to looking at what we can establish for DACA, I think it's really interesting because you know, there are things that we can deal with, you know, as our responsibilities, like within our clans, for example, when you know there are things that have happened that have occurred that require some work, you know, and I think that's something that could be a part of that, you know, looking at wildlife management, for example. I know that from time to time we incorporate voluntary closures in different areas for moose harvesting. And at times, sometimes we find that some of our citizens don't necessarily follow that. And so what happens is, as mentioned earlier, is that sometimes these things slip and nothing happened, or there's no repercussions for that. So I think as part of that, I would think that it would be good if we had something that is representative of DACA, that where we could bring individuals that have done that, where we can bring them before, let's say, our peers and have some discussion with them about the whole purpose of voluntary closures and all of that, and really kind of gaining some understanding from that particular individual on why they went ahead and did that. And it could be, you know, their inability to access other areas. It could be for various reasons, but being able to have that as an opportunity to help to change behaviors or just gain further in perspectives on various things like that. You know, I think this legislative piece that maybe doesn't necessarily have to be so technical in a sense, but But if we can begin to establish a process where we can help our people to better understand why we do certain things within our clans or within our government or within our community, and if we can hold them accountable for these things, then this may be an area where we can bring together a group of our members and be able to begin to establish something where we can help our people just to be more proactive, more supportive of the various things that we've decided to do within our governments, within our community, within our clans, and really help us to begin to have a more positive outlook for where we're heading. But I just think this legislation piece is one part. Just don't want us to get too caught up in the technical stuff, but if we can look at it from a more of a general perspective, I think that would be also helpful as well. So, but thank you very much for this presentation of this work plan. I think it's pretty positive, identifies a lot of the key issues that we originally decided upon, and it really adds a lot of components that we have to definitely consider and further talk about.
Thank you, Chief Morse. Any other comments? Or no? John? Hard to look right beside.
Thanks again, Chief Linda. I just want to really maybe underscore some of Eric's comments and a bit of Richard's as well. And the importance of maybe giving a little bit of attention to those things as a way of empowering our efforts going forward. I really believe strongly in this historical land use and occupation concept. And whatever history, or like Chantel's earlier comment about continuing the work that our ancestors and elders left us, and the things that they had put in place, the principles they gave us to work with, and so on. So it's always ongoing. And I always think about the empowerment. How do we empower this work? And I think those things are the truth, the facts that we researched, those histories. It's the truth. And I remember the previous chief, Sylvester Jack, always mentioned, when you stand on that truth, that's what's really going to bring us forward and settle things for us. So, and I think Eric brings up a good thing, and there is some interest, particularly among the Ishkitan people in Auckland, to learn more about protocols. They want to learn about themselves and the right way to do things. And I did approach Sam in Teslin and let him know about the interest. So we talked, but we never put anything in motion because we got to do things in a respectful way. We don't want to upset any apple carts as we go along. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation in open now. So I'm hoping to bring at least this particular one on our next CTC meeting and discuss this, but how we support that. Because over in Atlin, we're just in Crow Wolf, there's no house, kind of speak. So we're a bit of a transition, maybe, you know, to get some consistency throughout all of Tlingit Nation. So it's really helpful to hear this stuff. Constitution.
Okay, thank you. Any other? TJ?
That's all. Thanks again. Again, I'm just observing, but there's some comments that were made here that we think, or at least I think that we could possibly work on to bring us together. One of the things that I haven't heard about, talking about amongst our people, is how do we protect us? How do we protect our land? Right now, we're having trouble with borders south of us and question about north of us. And we are told that we are not going to be able to settle anything until we settle those differences. But I think we can bypass that. If we can go to the government or go to the negotiators with a plan to protect ourselves firefightingly, we know that we can go 25, 30 miles inside of a border to fight a fire. So that's our in. We put together a team that allows us to go to each other's territory to fight a fire. We protect ourselves. We protect our water. We start putting together things that put our people out on the land to protect those things. I mean, I helped put together a hydro project, and the good thing that I found about it is that we just barely beat those beavers to damming that river. That's the only thing we got out of it, other than the fact that we are getting money for electricity. But to work on the land, there was not that much. The hassle that I got from the people uptown is, how many people are you hiring? And then when it's over, there's only 3 of us working. We caught heck. You put in a multi-million-dollar project and all you got is 3 people working. So I started looking at that. If we're going to start putting in projects and working on our project, just how many of our people can we put to work? One of the things I really enjoyed when I was flying across Canada is the workings of people actually working to protect the land. The firefighters, Ducks Unlimited, stuff like that. Those guys that are actually doing that for their life's work. They go out trapping all winter, and then in the summertime, they go firefighting. That's their job. Up here, we've got minerals, we've got gas, oil, all these different things that we can go in, we can extract and become rich. But where does it leave our people if they can no longer go out on the land? I think if we're going to work together, we should look at protecting our people and our land as a basis to start. Economically, we know we can do it. But now, how do we step back and take the time and look at the people that are coming in? The ones that are lost, the ones that never came back from residential school, the ones that were sent away, never brought back. Those are our people too, and we need to bring those back.
Yeah.
So how do we do it? We need to attract them back.
Okay.
We need to have them so that they fight for our land.
But it didn't say he was here.
I'd rather have a young person come in and slam the table and say, I want to be a firefighter, than come in and slam the table and say, where's my welfare check? So how do we set it up for that? Abitibi, or the big corporations in Canada that have forestry leases that they have for years and years and years so they could make pulp. It was the First Nations in Manitoba that went ahead and pushed the government that Abitibi has to have their own firefighters to take care of it. Now, the government can come along to us and say, you want that protected land? Protect it. Forest firefighters won't come into your territory anymore unless you have an agreement. So let's make that agreement. Put our people to work on both sides of the land. Protection is going to be key. Population is going to increase exponentially. Great time. We're going to have more trucks on the road. We're going to have more stuff being taken out. We need to let our people know that, yes, you can protect if you're a firefighter. Yes, you can protect if you clean up a spill response. Yes, you can protect if you have to go avalanche control. It's our territory. Let's start qualifying our people to do just that. Protect us any way we can. Use all the information, everything you have, whether it be a helicopter or whether it be whatever. Let's start looking at protecting. Because our borders, if it's not solid, we're going to lose it. Because there's a lot of people that are going to be in the next few years that are going to be coming into this country. It's too attractive. It's we know that the science says that right now, the card that we have in our pocket is one of the most valuable cards in the world. So how do we protect ourselves? My suggestion, let's look at protecting the land. Gunishish.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Chantel?
I'm really appreciating those comments and just want to draw our attention to the next agenda item, which is on assertion. And so I think in talking about legislation, although I skipped over that quite quickly on the work plan, it is the focus for how we would govern our entire traditional territory. And I do know that we had a meeting in Atlin where Carcross and Tesla negotiators came to present to TRT. And it was really not super well understood about what kinds of structures or systems we could use to assist us to govern our whole traditional territories. Previously, the idea was that we would focus on land selection or smaller areas of which to govern. We're way beyond that now. With the new landscape of how governance goes and the opportunities available to Indigenous governments, we are certainly not looking at just piecemealing out our territory. So I think that's one of the messages that we need to bring back to our communities, is that through nation rebuilding and through treaty and through ongoing collaboration of our nations, we'll be looking to govern our whole territory. And those are the concrete steps we'll be taking to move forward and to capitalize on the opportunities available to us today. So it's not just looking at site-specific ways of governing, it's looking at these larger governance structures. So as we talk a bit more and move into the next agenda piece, that's what you'll hear. And there are lots of terms that might be very government-oriented. And so for any suggestions that you might have about how we can tweak the message to bring back to the community so that what we're saying is more well understood, of course, we really look to you for that guidance. Ganashish.
Thank you, Chantel. So we have Stephen Phillips on the line, or I guess I should go around the room first and see if anybody else has any concerns, questions? Okay, Stephen.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm Stephen Phillips. I don't know everyone in the room, but been working with Tesla now for TTC for about 20 plus years. And as a lawyer and as their in-house legal counsel, focused in the Yukon, of course. And I note from the participant list that Dave, Joe, and Darren Lease are also participating, and so invite them to assist me at any time. And what I understand I'm doing is to review and present and review the assertion letter, which Lynn advises me has been circulated. Everyone has a copy, so don't need to share it. Although I could, I think, if I need to. But is that correct?
It's there. Yeah, it's here. We have it.
Okay. So should I just launch into discussing it and reviewing it?
Oh, I'm not on. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Well, this I was asked by Tesla to Dave Keenan to become involved to help write this letter, and that's sort of been my central role, is to try and find language that reflects the instructions and the inputs from TTC and CTFN, and so it's gotten to this stage, and it's not by any means all of my writing at all. It's really a combination of many inputs from bureaucrats, from technicians, and all the way up to our political leadership. So I'll just review it in a higher, like in a context level, rather than reviewing the language at this point. Overall, this is a letter that's trying to deliver certain messages, and in a context. So it needs to be thought of that way, I think, and question ourselves if one, the context is accurate, correct, or powerfully stated, and secondly, is the message getting through? And I am concerned that it's a bit long, so I acknowledge that fact. But the messages were, to summarize that, first of all, we're dealing with the collective 3 First Nations with a shared history, a shared culture, and working together, just to underscore that message. Secondly, it was to summarize the depth and magnitude of the experience of these 3 First Nations, both in BC and Yukon and even beyond in some respects, which is very, it's complex, it's very diversified, but it's really also a strong message from my perspective. It speaks to, if I was sitting on the other side, in Canada, BC, Yukon, you'd say, wow, like this is, we can engage here in a very meaningful way, and we better take this seriously if we're not already. We also wanted to demonstrate this willingness to work collaboratively with governments, with each other, and at all levels. And it's, this is about going forward with a vision, and the experience demonstrates that you don't have to make the arguments, it's simply look at the experience. There's also the message that that collectively there's a capacity and a willingness to define and defend their rights, both Aboriginal treaty rights, either in negotiations, which has been, from my experience, with TTC, that's their preference. But if you have to, if it's important and the government's not listening, quite prepared to challenge things in court, either as an interim step or final steps. So that's a proven quantity, it's a proven dynamic throughout. And then part of the message too was to speak to the vision that you have, and to articulate it, describe it, a vision for the future, working with all levels of government, and defining and relying on those relationships. And in doing so, both rely on and build on and enhance the principles that we become fairly familiar with, the free and prior informed consent, the honor of the crown, use of jurisdiction, recognition of inherent rights, and in the end, if you have to, the rule of law, including the traditional Indigenous laws. Something that's just starting to really evolve in the incorporation and recognition and enforcement of Indigenous laws. We also wanted to focus attention on certain urgent needs for interim protection and management measures. I've just been listening for 20 minutes, and I've heard that that theme come up in your discussions today. And so we provided, concrete examples of concerns, suggestions, and really sort of evidence of a lack of cooperation, a lack of development, a lack of progress on those interim protections. Another message was underscoring, our collective seriousness. This has reached a level of concern that cannot be ignored, cannot be shoved under the carpet anymore. So there are some statements made, towards the end of the letter about the seriousness of that, and we're going to take steps to require prior consent, and including notice to the public, etc. Those kinds of assertive steps, but in a positive way, not necessarily having to create legal actions and circumstances for legal actions, trying to explain that in a collaborative government-to-government relationship, this can be done without having to resort to legal battles. And then the final little message was just reminding government that this isn't just a political letter. This isn't a political request. They have legal obligations. And where those legal obligations require them to do something. And we're inviting them to demonstrate their political will by giving mandates to their negotiators that fulfill the recognition and assertion of rights as demonstrated in all of the term sheets at the negotiation table. But this is bigger than just the negotiation tables. So there's a bit of a summary from where I sit from my perspective. And I guess we're just open for comments or questions. I'm not here as a lawyer because I'm not called in BC. So that's why I've asked Dave and Darren are online, so they can also address any legal questions you might have. Thank you.
Where's that agenda? There it is. Does anybody have anything to say or additions or Mark? No, because you're also on the agenda for this part.
What's that?
You're also on this here part here. Like if you wanted to, you and Dave, if you wanted to speak towards it.
Yeah, sure. And I look forward to questions. I think Stephen touched on it and looked to Dave and Darren also for some input. And it goes back to something, TJ, that you said, is that how do we protect our lands? I mean, when we talk about getting right down to it, it's about how do we protect the lands? How do we protect the animals? How do we protect what's happening on there? And at the negotiating table for the last 4 years, we've been, asking, if you wish, Canada and BC to say we need interim protection while, we're negotiating treaty. We need protection on the land because land dispositions are occurring, right? Things are happening. And there's really been not really a response. They sort of come back and say, tell us, which areas you have sacred sites that we can protect them. We're saying it's bigger than that. And so when we were sitting there and we started saying, we got to quit asking, right? We got to quit asking. We have to start taking as government saying, this is not acceptable anymore. So that's what we did. We ran it past Executive Council in Carcross, this idea that we need to just inform governments and people that, there's treaty, there's this land is occupied. It's not that it's unoccupied, and to put it out there. And so Executive Council took it to our General Council, and our General Council is supporting it, saying, yes, we need to go in this direction, giving the Executive Council us the direction to go in there. What they also said is, where's TRT? Right? Because the first letter we drafted, right, it was sort of from Carcross, like Carcross looking at a proclamation, they said it's stronger if it comes from Dakar. So when we talked with Teslin, Teslin's also said it's stronger, right? So Teslin looked at, participating on it. And so it really gets to the question, and it's not trying to put pressure on or anything like that, but if it's from Dakar, and is it stronger to start saying, we're asserting our rights, right? So I think in terms of the leadership, do we want to approach this where the 3 leaders are signatories to the letter, right? Or, and we could do it different ways, but I think the direction from our General Council is we got to start moving now. We can't keep asking and expecting our land to be protected from other governments, that we have to actually move in that direction. So I think that's the foundation. I think as Stephen laid it out, we talked about that, is we want to do it in a good way. We don't want to threaten with court, all these types of things, but we do want to assert our rights. We do want to say, we are governments. We are looking after this land. It's our responsibility as Creator has given it to us. And we want to do it in a good way. And we're willing to work with you as governments, whether it's through land use planning or whatnot, but we are doing it. To the other degree, we talked internally, because when we expect that we'll proclaim this, or do a proclamation, and proclamation, I don't care what you call it, right? Because we started with the idea of an order in council. That's how Western governments do business. They get an order in council, which is like a decision document or something that says we're going to do this. So what we did is that we started saying, well, okay, let's just inform people that this is where we're at. And the staff are expecting is that if people want to apply for land disposition or hunting permits or these types of things, they can come and talk with us, right? It's not that we're saying no development, no, none of this. It's that you have to work with us, get consent. And we think the best way to work with it from our perspective is to start looking at how do we interact with the land? How do we, it's kind of like when we do the land process and water process, and that's how we started working with the bigger expansion of land becomes an important thing of how do we work with it? How do we develop it? And we all stop there, but I think what's important is that background. I think Stephen did capture it. That's, this letter can change. It's sort of open to it, but really what it is trying to say, how do we, and do we want as three Dakar nations, governments, do we want to do this together? What's the best way to do it? And it's not trying to put pressure on anybody to, to do one thing or other. It's how can we best do it, but do it in the united front type thing is where we're sort of, the approach that we want to look at.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have anything to mention, speak of? Dave?
Thanks, everybody. The one thing that I think that should be really driven home is that this isn't a one-way letter. This is not a letter that, say, the Tlingit and the Yukon are using and trying to garner Taku River support in BC. What it is, it's a letter that works for two ways. It takes the 3 First Nations and it recognizes Taku River Tlingit's rights in the Yukon. That's why you see the way the letter is crafted. It's to bolster all of our rights, whether it's geographically located in British Columbia or in the Yukon. That's what the intent is, to form that nation. And I think that's where we need to really keep in the back of our mind that the strength that you need, we can help provide in the Yukon, and it's vice versa. We need each other. And if we're going to survive as a distinct nation with distinct languages, then this is an obvious, in my mind, the right step, the right way to go. And thank you, Mark. I think you clarified it. Stephen, excellent job of walking through it. It comes right down to, this is not a legal question. This isn't a political question. This is a unity question. And if we're going to go ahead, how are we going to go ahead?
Chantel? You're next. Okay.
Thank you. From the negotiator perspective, I know that spokesperson Ward will also be speaking from his perspective. But from the negotiator perspective, certainly Taku has concerns about the length of the letter as well. And it is a bit vague. We are hoping for something that would be a bit more scoped down and centered on a couple of specific issues or one specific issue. I know that on our work plan, we have fish and wildlife management. So talking about how do we protect our lands, that's a really big piece of it and is a focused and specific concrete action item that we could agree on. And I will of course allow spokesperson Ward to respond formally for Taku. But on a letter like this, we would need to see something a little more scoped down. It is very encompassing. It captures a lot of content. And at this point, tying it to a work plan or something that's a little bit more achievable for Taku with this current government might be more suitable for our purposes for this right now. And so we have talked at the negotiator level about one of the most important pieces of the work plan. Well, they're all important. One of them that can be helpful in putting the other governments on notice, for example, of our intention to start collaborating to manage all of our traditional territory in the area of fish and wildlife. That's something really concrete. So of course, spokesperson Ward, I don't want to speak for you though.
I have one person. So Bessie, and then spokesperson Ward.
Bessie Jimmy is my English name. Gudstutin Tlingit Einach. Ach ka Lucy Wren to Sagan. Ka ach ish. Jimmy Scotty to Sagan. I was born and raised in Taku River, or Tushai River, where it runs into Taku Arm. I spent my winters there with my family trapping. And as far as back as I can remember, in 1954, 55, my dad used to go to Atlin, and he used to spend sometime 2 weeks there, visit everybody. Teslin, same way. And since time began, our people were always together, and we can be strong when we're one. This is our land. Klingit ani away ati. Ach, I, do I, belongs to everybody. It's how we look after it and how we take care of it. Like when I was a kid, there was mining, everything tried to come in. But our people, we stood up to them. We put a stop to it. When are we going to start? I'm sure we can apply our own government laws from self-government and from our land claims agreement. It should benefit us when we're going into negotiating BC. You know, I don't believe in that border. There never was a border in my life. And even now I get bullheaded about it because I don't care for it. You know, if they hadn't have put that border in there, we wouldn't have this trouble today. What we're going through, nation building. Our people should be strong, united, and together. And tell the government, we don't need yours no more. What about ours? How do you know we ain't right? We listened to you for 150 years. How do you know we ain't right for now? So you young kids gotta push it. Don't let them walk over you anymore. Just push it aside and go and do what you want to do and do it. What are they gonna do when it's already done? That's what I say. You protect the land, the water, the air, the trees, everything. If it ever come to hard times, that's our store out there. That's the one's going to take care of us. That's the way it was meant to be for thousands and thousands of years. So I say, unite, be strong, make the Daka backbone stronger and more vicious. Goodness cheese.
Thank you, Elder Bessie. John, spokesperson Walker.
Thank you. I appreciate all those comments. I'm right in line with what's being said. As Chantel pointed out, there are some things that maybe we want to look at. And I'm wondering if we can work directly with Stephen Phillips about that and just get it done ASAP. And probably get it out the door Tuesday, Wednesday maybe. We have our team ready to go to work on this. It's not something that's going to put one side a little bit heavy or get the wheel out of balance, but it would help us. I think the Taku River Tlinkits, our thoughts and what we need to get done in British Columbia, the BC claim, and so on. The other thing I want to bring up though too is, you know, we always talk about borders and stuff, but we do have one right in our face. It's the BC Yukon border. You know, we want to respect one another's responsibilities close to home and all this. That's great. But I was at a CYFN meeting yesterday. There was a nice olive branch, you know, given to the Taku River Tlinkits, basically to join up as an associate member. I'm looking at that. I'm going to discuss that with my directors as well. See where it hits the ground. But I don't think it's going to be very favorable not to be able to vote on something, not to have any decision making but just to observe and stuff. So I'm hoping that there might be a way to open a door to explore that and discuss that further with the chiefs in the Yukon. So that otherwise we are catering to Yukon and BC government actually and recognizing those differences. You're south of the border, I'm sorry, you know, or whatever, but I think if we're going to do this, we might as well go to full 9 yards on it. So that's all I'm asking for is a little time to discuss that one point. And maybe it'll go nowhere. I don't know. But at least if there's open opportunity to see where we can go with that, I would really appreciate it. Constitution. So can we work with Stephen Phillips? Or how we do this?
Can I clarify? So what I'm hearing you say is that we have direction from this forum for TRT to work on a letter with Stephen Phillips and the legal team. So we would have a draft for signature with all 3 nations next week by midway.
That's it.
Kunal
Anybody
Hello.
else? Hello, Dwayne?
Hi. No, that's great. That's great news, and it's great hearing the conversations. I'm just still a youngster compared to a lot of people around the table. I've been on executive council for 12 years now, so it's good to hear that that willingness for all 3 nations to work together. We've been hearing that message from our elders consistently over the years. I always go back to 2006 to the Dakka elders gathering in Carcross, Natasahini, where they talked about we're one nation, one inland Tlingit nation. There were elders from Atlin, Carcross, Teslin, and from the coast as well. And a lot of the elders aren't with us here today. They moved on, but they're still with us in spirit and still with us in their teachings. And I know they're smiling down on us as well, that to see us finally listening to them and working together as one inland Tlingit nation. I know with TTC and Carcross that we have seats at the table at the First Nations Summit down in BC. That I don't understand why TRT can't have a seat at CYFN, not as an associate member, but you have lands and rights in the Yukon, so we shouldn't let that colonial border divide us and just say you're an associate member. That you should be full. I believe you should be full members of CYFN. So whenever any government is talking to us, whether it's Yukon, British Columbia, Canada, even America, that when they're talk to the inland Tlingit nation, that they know that they're talking to us as a unified inland Tlingit nation, and that we'll equally stand up for our brothers and sisters, no matter what side of those colonial borders that they're on. And it's unlearning for us young folk to think outside of the Western way of thinking. We've been living under these colonial borders for so long that sometimes it's difficult to put them aside. But for our elders and those old ones who were brought up in the old way, that it's easy for them not to see those borders because those aren't our borders. So I really look forward to this strengthening Dakka Tlingit. And just recently, the Supreme Court ruled in Canada that even international borders can't cut off Indigenous people from their rights. When the Supreme Court ruled that First Nation in Washington state still had full rights in Canada, that international border did not cut their rights off. And the same applies to us, that whether it's BC or Yukon border or Alaska border, that no colonial border cuts our rights off, and that we got to stand as one. And we always think about what Ted Hunch would always tell us at General Council: unite and become one. And so it's good to see that happening today. To get you on.
Okay, any other questions or concerns in regards to the assertion letter?
I guess if I may, just to add a little bit too, is just to say that, essentially the letter addresses the need that we see for us to be consulted and, to be informed of what's going on in our traditional territories in British Columbia, to be included in some of the things that are being planned or being done, and be given the opportunity to have control over the things that are going on, like through the game guardianship. I look at the game guardianship that we have within in Teslin here, when it comes to our traditional territory within the Yukon, and the experience that we've been able to gain from just doing that work, and looking at how we collaborate with the conservation officers in this area here, and just being able to be given that opportunity to do the very same thing within the northern British Columbia in regards to looking at how we as mentioned earlier, protect the land and really look at protecting the wildlife that are there, and ensuring that we always think about our future generations and being able to have things in place for them. And I think definitely the other aspect or the other element to all of this work that is happening now is that, we're all getting older now, and I think really definitely want to give thanks to Yasan and to Chano for, their willingness to continue on with the work that we're doing in this area and other areas. And because we really rely on the experience that they've been able to gain through the negotiations with the land claim agreement in the Yukon, and being able to look at just the significance of that alone in terms of what they were able to achieve during their time. And I think about that, and I remember years ago when I was working with Chano in regards to serving him as serving as his deputy, and being told when we were sitting in negotiations with the BC government, and them telling us that what we were able to achieve in the Yukon we'll never achieve in BC. But I think since that time, a lot of, as Gaston has mentioned, a lot of things have changed over the course of time, and that no longer can be their bottom line. And I really strongly believe that we are in a good place. The letter, in a sense, captures all of those aspects that I'm speaking of. And I strongly believe that the experience and the dedication that our past leaders have had, and the vision that they have for how we need to look at protecting what we have today is a part of all of that. And but I really I'm looking forward to the work that's going to be done over the next couple of days in terms of looking at how we can make some adjustments to this letter. As you will note that we have signed it and signed on to it because we essentially agreed with the content of the letter. And I think if there's an ability to maintain what's within it and still meet some of what TRT and spokesperson John want to see addressed, then we definitely will work with that as well. And so I wanted to thank you all for taking the time to go through this, and really I think it's important, and give Stephen thanks for the work that he's done in this area. Thank
you, Chief Morse. So we have a couple more things on the agenda, and Chantel will address those.
Thanks, everyone. So we had on the agenda, we had a bunch of items under the assertion of rights letter, and we now have an action item that we've already discussed. So we've got what we need for that point. Yay. Looking forward to that intensive work. So we have run out of time because lunch is ready now. But the item that I wanted to draw your attention to We will be discussing scheduling, and so a leadership meeting will go offline and discuss the next dates for that, as well as possibilities and dates for our next on the land gathering. But the final item is the Nakana Trail Walk. So the dates on there are actually wrong. I apologize for that. The dates are actually July 12th to the 19th. And the TRTFN Lands Department, along with our Land Guardian program, are undertaking a hike during that date range. So the hike is intended to be a longer one, so it can be accessible for people who may have more difficulties traveling the 2 to 3 day rough terrain. And so it'll be broken down over half days during that week. But it seems like a very good opportunity for our people to coordinate. And if there are people from TTC and CTFN who would like to join, particularly youth, it would be a really wonderful opportunity to coordinate our teams. So I'm flagging those dates because I've heard it mentioned. I've heard the importance of culture, gathering on the land, language, and I also know that Children of the Taku, as our language revitalization society, is also doing a language immersion. And so while I am not clear on what the availability or accessibility of that program is, I do want to draw your attention to that, because if our coordination efforts are able to support that kind of work, I'm already hearing it brought up a lot. So there is a venture going on for the end of June, which would be a Tlingit immersion camp, as well as a joint hike started by the Lands Department and supported by the Land Guardian program of TRT. And that's July 12th to 19th for the hike. So that's also a reason to celebrate. And if you see Children of the Taku wandering around here this afternoon, please feel free to speak to them.
Okay, thank you. Any closing comments before lunch?
I want to say, I'm just really excited about this hike. I'm not sure if I'll be able to make it, but I definitely support that. And I think that's such an incredible opportunity for our citizens. And I'm really looking forward to that. But it also is related in some ways to what I also been thinking about too, is like every year we purchase salmon that has been harvested in the Taku River area. And like, I know that I often think that why can't we create an opportunity where we can work together with TRTFN and look at how we can maybe do the very same thing, but do it in a different fashion. And I think that's something that's worthwhile discussing, because I know that we have one of our citizens, Mike Smart, that used to spend some time on I think it might be the Nakana, I'm not exactly sure, but I think about these kinds of things that are very exciting and a benefit for all. And I wanted to know that once we start doing these kinds of things, then we can begin to look at reopening the trail that's at the head of our lake here and going to reconnect that. And I think there's such an awesome opportunity, and I can't help but feel excited about it all. So I'm so glad that this is being done. Thank you very much. Going with cheese.
Thank you, Chief Morris. Spokesperson Ward, and then Alex.
Thank you again. I'm glad there's going to be interest in the trail. I think I was given my name because of my involvement with that trail over the years. Dayik means right on the trail. Sam's right here. He just wanted to give it to me at his mom's potlatch. So anyways, I hope that I'm involved in that somehow. The last few years I haven't been, but I've been consistently working on that for well over 20 years. Getting small grants, taking kids out, cutting, and teaching them how to get ready for the workforce and so on. And it's all been so interesting to watch our kids grow that way. And I really want to thank some of the comments, again, someone mentioned about, the First Nations Summit in Vancouver supported TTC and CTFN fully. Lock, stock, and barrel. Plus, you're given a voting card when you enter the door. So you have just as much say in British Columbia, and you currently do, because you're registered with the summit. And so you can vote just as well as Neutral North or any group in British Columbia. And I think it's just kind of fair. They don't recognize just border, just the First Nations Summit, nor does the Union of BC Indian Chiefs or the Leadership Council in British Columbia for that matter. I'm pretty sure BCAFN is in the same regard as well. So maybe that's something we could talk about with the Yukon AFN rep. You know, just get some thoughts about that idea and see where that goes. And I'm really thankful. We'll try to expedite this as quick as we can. We have one good, strong technical person at home that can really help us with this. And we'll work through Chantel. Good.
Thank you, spokesperson Ward. Alex?
I'll just keep it short. I know the Nakano walk, I'll definitely be going on and taking my kids. So Eric, I'm in July 12th to 19th, I'm opening the office. My cell phone's not going to work either. So just so I'm putting you on notice so you know where I'm at. But the one thing I do really want to stress about this is, I mean, we've talked about land, but we haven't talked about meeting out on the land. Wherever the borders are, I mean, those aren't my borders, they're not our borders. And as far as what Mark was saying about going, we need to have a talk sooner than later. Because I mean, as soon as the borders open, I mean, I'm gone. I mean, like I've told Richard this morning, I mean, if I don't want to be found on my land, I won't be. But I mean, I want to go back to where we came from and learn that history and breathe and be part of it. And just to be there, I mean, to me, it'd be very powerful. I mean, even being here on this beautiful land or even in Atlan, I mean, the lake's not opening up quick enough, so I might come over and visit for a couple weeks with my boat until the lake opens up or whatever. But I mean, it's we have to start doing that stuff. I mean, I'm trying to get my children out on the land more. And I mean, I will be talking to my executive youth council members, so we do have participation at that knocking on walk and sharing those walks that our ancestors have done. Even talk to our Renewable Resource Council about keeping that trail from Atlan to Teslin open. Skidoo Trail or whatever, but I mean, at least keep it open, and that way we can start going out and building camps along the way and having that traditional gatherings where we used to a number of years ago. I mean, not so formalized, we're doing it as clinkets, we're living our healthy lifestyles that we're doing what we used to do. I mean, it's a little bit faster with skidoos, not snowshoes, but we got to do that. So just say Guns Chiefs to Carcross Tagish people for hosting this, and thanks to everybody online, and safe travels.
Great, thank you. So I too, Linda, would like to, I look forward to having our joint clan meetings. I think they're going to be interesting. Just to share stories, just to sit down and enjoy one another's company. It would be nice to sit down with Ishkatan from TRT and TTC. And then going on this trail hike, I really hope I can also make it because it sounds very interesting. I look forward to it. I'm not quite sure. And thank everybody for coming. It was nice for everybody to come and enjoy our hospitality. I don't know if anybody else has anything to say. Any closing comments? TJ?
Just a joke.
Okay.
Okay, this guy comes up to a stop sign, looks both ways, drives through. Wow, here comes a cop. Cop pulls him over and he says, "Through that stop sign, you didn't stop." And the guy says, "Oh," he says, "I came there and I looked both ways." He said, "There's nobody there, so I just rolled through." The guy says, "Well, I'm sorry, can I have your license?" And he kept, "Oh, come on, man, it was just easy. There was nobody around." Finally, the cop says, "Sir, can you get out of your car, please?" He said, "Can you come to the back of the car?" So he goes to the back of the car. Cop comes behind him with his nightstick, starts wailing on him. Bang, bang. The guy goes, "Stop, stop." The cop says, "Should I stop or should I just slowly roll through?"
All right.
Okay. You haven't got caught at the stop sign, eh? Okay.
Chief Dixon,
We still don't have enough stop signs up here, that's.
Chief Dixon, I just wanted to, say, ashish to you and your leadership for allowing us to be able to meet in this, on your lands and to your citizens. I just so grateful for that. And I know that we've all, both of us in many ways, and all of us in a sense have experienced some hardships over the last while. And I think a lot of these kinds of discussions really help to bring up our spirits and really help us to be able to look at how we really need to be able to move on. And so I really want to take this opportunity to thank you. And just in regards to what John was talking about, how the BCFN is really has no limitations in terms of how it works with other nations. And I know that we just yesterday, actually, we were going through the Yukon region AFN terms of reference, and there was mention of TRTFN as well as part of that document. And so I think definitely you're in line with where the thinking is at on how we really don't consider borders other than looking at the working relationships that need to be and are required to be maintained. So just to say that as well. So thank you very much. Kamachish, everyone.
Yes, thank you, Kanish. Uncle Sam would like to have a word. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. And since you started telling jokes, I might as well tell one too. And a lot of you, I know a lot of you travel on the highway. Any of you ever see a crow being bumped on the road? Well, crow, you watch for a crow anytime you're traveling. He's always got something to eat off the road or whatever. But you never ever see him get bumped. You know why? Because you always have one guarding for him on a big high tree to warn him. So he warned this guy down below. He said, "Caw coming." And another one is, you know, like all of you like McDonald's. Even the crows like McDonald's too. If you don't believe me, if you go to White Horse, you look around the garbage can around close to McDonald's, because he's calling you all the other ones. Come, lots, McGarbage. So that's my crow joke. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other
jokes?
Jokes.
How about relative humidity? Anybody know about that one? What definition of relative humidity? Or what it's all about is when you ask your cousin to borrow money and he says, piss on you, relative humidity.
Okay, John has one more suggestion or comment.
So given what's just happened, I think we should make an addition to this trail walk and get some extra money, fly some elders to Nakano and tell some more of these old stories and jokes. Make it a part of the program.
So, what's your joke?
You want to hear one? Tell you a repeat of one of Sam's old jokes he told me. Okay, get your permission, eh? Anyways, he was telling me there are people who are teaching this Caucasian, you know, how to deal with grizzly bears. One get after you, you find a little hill and just scoot up there because they have harder time or going downhill or something. Sure enough, bear got after this guy and he looked around for the kind of place that he was taught by our people. So he went for it and he tripped and fell down. The boy got scared and he got on his knees right away and he said, "Oh Lord, please make that bear religious." He said, and everything went quiet and he looked back and here's that bear on his knees. "Thank you, Lord, for what you're about to give me." He said.
Okay, thank you. Charlie, would you like to say closing prayer, please? And then-
Just quickly.
Okay.
All these Raven jokes I wanted to share on the screen. Us wolves when we get old and forgetful.
Thank you. This thing on. Thank you, Creator, for just allowing us to be here today and to reacquaint ourselves with where we need to go and give us the strength and the courage to make decisions that we need to do and be with everyone today as we continue the meeting this afternoon and give us the understanding that we need to have.
Thank you, Charlie. So lunch is being served. If you just go up over to the window here and they will pass you a meal, your lunch.
Thank you for everything.